In this part 3, we're going to do the final scene design, the lighting, and the animation for this product design video. Hopefully you followed along with parts 1 and 2 where we did the full modeling workflow as well as all the texturing for this model. If you didn't follow along with those though, you can download this model with all the textures applied for free from my Patreon so you can follow along with this video and create a super cool product animation for your portfolio. I hope you enjoyed the video. With that, let's get straight into it. Okay, let's get started with the animation of this design we've made. Hopefully you've done part 1 and 2. If you have, I'm going to set this view to a rendered view. Basically what we have is just a plane that has a wood texture applied. I'm using some from Grayscale Gorilla, but I also showed in the last video how you can use something from a free website called Ambient CG. And then I have this kind of rotary matte model. I also showed in the last video where you can get one of those from a company called BlenderKit. There's a free add-on. You can do that in Blender. And then basically all we have in this scene right now, I'm rendering in cycles, but we have one kind of light sitting right here. We set this up in the last video. It's basically the same. The light is at 2500 watts, and then I have the size set to 5.5. It's kind of replicating a big window in this corner. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create the animation that you've seen. I'll put it up on the screen right now. Basically, we're just going to rotate around the design. We have to fix some of the lighting issues that we've got going on because we just have one light in the scene right now. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to split this down like this, and we're going to set up our camera as the first thing. So I'm going to go into the new, into the file or the layout thing here. If you press C, that adds a new collection. I'm going to name this LCA. That just stands for Lights, Camera, Action. So I'm going to click on that, and then the first thing we're going to do is set up our camera control. So I'm going to go over here, Shift A, and then the first thing I'm going to do is add an empty cube, and this is going to be our camera controller. And then I'm going to go into front view, Shift A, add a camera, and then I'm just going to move it along the Y-axis, kind of bring it out here. And then what we're going to do is parent that camera to this controller. So Control P, Object, Keep Transform. This camera icon is going to stay right here, and then I might just name this empty camera rig. And then basically if you ever need to get to the camera settings, this would just be the empty, but you can click on this camera and that'll bring this up. So while we're here, let's go ahead and set the focal length to 125. I tend to like long focal lengths for product shots. And then what we're going to do is in this bottom rendered view here, I'm just going to hit 0 on my nub pad. That's going to go to camera view. And then I'm going to rotate this along its x-axis, just bring it up. And then I'm going to G, Z, Z. And I need to turn on my motion key or my screencast keys. 1 second. Okay, you seeing that? Sweet. So we need to do G, Z, Z. Once we click on the camera, G, Z, Z, bring it back. And then I'm just going to kind of set up the hero shot now. So I'm just going to go G, or rotate this along the Z-axis, and then I'm going to RXX to rotate along the normal or the local X-axis of this empty. And that's kind of the basic setup for the shot that you saw in the animations. I'm going to GZZ, bring this back a little bit more, set this up like this. And then I've already got mine set up. If you are showing, I'll go to the passport settings, but I want this to not be gray. I've got it turned off where it has no overlays here, so I'm just seeing what the rendered view sees. And then I also like to turn this passport up, or however you say this, passive part out, however you say it. I like it to just be black so I can kind of see what's going on. And then I'm going to leave this top view to be kind of like a another editor. So I'll have my 3D view here. I'll be able to change my materials or stuff here, and then I usually leave this the way it is. So that's kind of my setup when I'm setting up my shots. So I've got this also set to be 1500 by 1500. So if it's like going on Instagram, you can do a square. That usually looks pretty good. Or you might even stretch it vertically if you want to. Now that Instagram kind of supports higher resolutions in the vertical direction, that's cool. So basically, we're going to use this light as our key light. But if you look, we've got very dark areas and you can't really see what's going on here. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go to the top view. I'm going to duplicate this light that I have and then hit Alt-R to reset its rotation. And then I'm just going to go into the front view, rotate it, and then bring it up 90. And then I'm just going to bring it out here and point it toward our object. You can see we're getting blown out. So I'm going to take our light, click the light setting. I'm going to make this like 400. That's going to provide some fill light on this side. And then I'll probably GZ, bring that down like that. And then that's looking pretty good. We'll go through and edit some different lights here in a bit. But now we want to talk about kind of creating this scene a little bit. So what I'm going to do is come over here, hit C for a new collection, and call this props. And then an add-on that I use a lot is the Sketchfab add-on. So if you go to the Sketchfab website, I'll put up a link or the view on the screen now. But Sketchfab is a really great resource to go find some, props and things to use in your scenes. You can also use websites like TurboSquid, CG Trader. Make sure that you're giving proper attribution to people that have their models. If you're using them in commercial work or anything, you want to make sure that you don't get in trouble for stealing other people's models and using them. But in this type of stuff, this is just going to be for fun. So I'm going to just import a couple models. So in the video, one thing that we had was a coffee cup model. So I've got this add-on activated. You can just go to the website and search for coffee model and you can download it. But if I go here and search coffee mug, takes it a second to load. And then I use this one right here. It actually has this really nice coffee texture on top. Make sure that you're selected in your props category. I think I already had one named that in here, so I'm just going to delete this and bring this down. So make sure you're clicked into your props thing, and then we're going to import this model. It'll take a second to import. And then it's all the way up here. It's kind of weird. So then I'm going to go in top view, just bring it close to where I want it. And then also it's parented to this parent right here. And you can see it's kind of down in this angle. So what I'm going to do is grab both of these and then Alt P, clear and keep transformation. That's going to make it to where I can move these. Like if I move the empty, it's not messing it up. So now I'm going to put my empty back in the middle and then go to the right view, GZ to bring it up. And then I'm also going to right click both of these and set their origin to the geometry. Basically it's the coffee and the mug. So I did that. And then I grabbed both of those, grabbed the empty last. So hold shift to click them, control P, object key transform. Now I can just kind of grab this, move everything. I'm going to go into the right view, bring it down. It's absolutely enormous. So I'm going to scale this down and then I'm going to go in the right hand view. If you don't have this set up from last time, all I have is two simple planes with a little bit of a solidify modifier here so I can see them. So this is my matte and then this is the wood texture. So that's very easy to set up. They're literally just planes. I'm going to bring this down basically till it sits right there. And then in the shot, I think I rotated it like this to where you could see kind of the handle, kind of get a feel for what that is. And then also for composition on this shot, I don't want this to be centered in this matte. I'm going to bring this over here like this. And I'm also going to keep the edges of these white lines from trying to intersect the edge of this. So basically I'm going to center this kind of in these squares, something like that. Basically what that does, it helps there not be white intersection against the white of this texture right here that we made. So now I'm going to go back and move my coffee mug. Maybe bring it down here, something like this. Maybe rotate this in the Z a little bit more, kind of go directly, almost directly across from it. And then another thing that we're going to do while we're thinking about it is this is supposed to be in the props. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to move everything inside the props collection. Sweet. In our lights camera action setting, we're also going to set up our depth of field. So make sure you're in LCA, Shift A, empty, plane axis. And then I just scale this up like this so I can just kind of see where it's at. And then like I said, go to your camera by hitting this button. The camera settings, we need to set up depth of field. Always use depth of field in your renders, even if it's a super high f-stop and you don't really notice it, it does make a difference. So I'm going to grab this and then I'm just going to go select that empty. And then I would usually set this to something like 1 or 1.5. Let's just go 1.5 for now. And that's going to give you a little bit of a blur here. It's going to help you ground in the fact that this is a real camera and everything's not perfectly in focus, which is a good deal. And then also, I think it's still a little bit dark over here. So let's go GZZ on this and just kind of bring this light up here closer. That looks good to me. And then I'm also going to take our prop here of this mug and I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Basically what we're doing is we're setting up our hero shot. And then also this area felt kind of blank to me when I was creating the render. So I basically just thought about what would be on a desk and thought a ruler would look cool. So I just went back to Sketchfab, looked for a ruler, 3D model, and then let this load. I saw this metal one that I thought was cool. So make sure you're in your props collection, click import, let that load. It comes in super huge. So I'm just gonna scale it down. Make sure that's in the props collection. It usually goes in there by default. I'm not sure why it did that. So I scaled it way down, zoomed in on the side view to make sure it's sitting right on top like that. Go into the top view, scale it down again, just brought it over here, kind of put it in this frame just to give us something going on down here. And then now if I wanted to, like if I wanted this to be even more out of focus, I could just grab this and then go to the depth of field and change it to like 1. And just gonna continue to blur this out and that kind of looks good to me. So that's basically what we're doing. The amount of lights in this scene is very simple. Like when I rendered this out to put on Instagram, it literally was 2 lights. It was this kind of key light and then 1 fill light. And it's kind of just reflecting as if there's plenty of light bouncing around in the room. You don't have tons of direct angles and shadows and stuff. If you wanted to, you could really go and like add a gobo and add some like shadow textures coming through this, like make it seem like you're up against a window. But for me, I was kind of just trying to highlight the product, so that was plenty enough for me. So I'm just going to search for a monitor to add one more prop to the scene right here. Gonna let the Sketchfab add-on load all the results from their website. Super handy add-on to just be able to do this in Blender, not have to go back, download, save it somewhere, and then import it. Just kind of does it all through one piece. It's pretty cool. So I'm gonna grab this computer monitor one right here. I think this is the one I used. I'm gonna be in the props, just click import. This is a little bit larger of a model. So I'm just going to take that just a second, let that import, and then we'll kind of go through some of the actual animation of the camera and set up some different pieces. So now it's in here, it's too small. I scaled it up on mine, just brought it back here, went to the right hand view, just kind of zoomed over to see if it was too high. This is kind of my ground plane, so I'm just going to GZ, bring it down, something like that. And then you can kind of pick what you want in your scene. This one kind of had different, I'm going to put this in this props collection. This has different like parents for the keyboard. So like honestly, I kind of moved this back. I didn't really want a ton of it in the shot. Composition is kind of a big point of your renders. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to grab this mug and I'm going to GY, bring it back a little bit, rotate a little bit, make sure it's sitting right on our plane. I notice there's a gap in mine a little bit. So I'm just going to bring this up right next to this. And then I'm going to bring our coffee mug right down next to that. That makes it look like it's a little bit more seated on there. And then I'm also going to rotate my camera controller and the RXX a little bit, get a little bit more top-down shot, and that looks good to me. And then in the shot, if you want to have the keyboard here, if you want to have the mouse here, you can kind of change that around. And then the last thing that I want to do is have kind of a cable that runs from here. So what I'm going to do is go into just the housing collection. And then I'm going to do Shift A, add in a curve. So curve, Bezier. And then just to do, I could see, I'm going to GZ and bring this up. And then I'm going to tab in edit mode. I just grab this one and then I'm going to E to extrude it. So click E, bring it out. I'm just going to rotate it, kind of bring it out here. E again, rotate, something like this. Scale with S. And then I might do the same thing with here. Scale this down a little bit. And then E out here, rotate, and then E one more. And then basically all I'm going to do is go to the curve, click geometry, and then in the bevel, I can increase this depth, and basically that's going to make this kind of be like a chord. I would also adjust this resolution to like maybe 10. And then let's see here. What else can we do? We can go to, we'll just go ahead and add a modifier to this also. So I'm going to add a control 1 modifier. It's going to smooth it out. And then I'm just going to GZ to bring it down into our scene. And then I'm going to click tab. And then I'm going to go Alt-Z edit mode. I'm going to grab this vertice here, just rotate it to where it's coming out of the back of our device. Now you can just kind of go through and grab each of your vertices, bring them in, scale them down if you don't want it to make such a sharp angle like this. And then also, let's go ahead and grab this one and GZ, bring it up just to where we don't want to have intersection right here. So then I would also probably grab this one. I'm going to kind of go parallel or like perpendicular to it and just click rotate, give that a little bit of an angle there. And then also this chord seems a little thick, so I'm going to bring this down just a little bit into something like that. Then I'm going to go out of X-ray mode and just make sure that these are resting against the desk. So I'm going to tab in edit mode, grab both of these, GZ, bring it down to where it's up against it. And then I might do the same thing on this one, GZ. If it intersects a little bit, you're not going to notice it as long as you kind of have like the ones right here that are up against the camera set. So I might grab this one. You can tell that it's off the ground. So GZ, just till it first intersects. And then now we're looking pretty good. Might check this one, GZ. Feel free to go through and play with this as much as you want. And zoom in on your render and just see if it looks weird. For me, this looks pretty good. So now you kind of have this thing leading away. Also, I think I'm going to come into the top view with tab and just grab all these and just kind of bring them back like this. Something like that. And then also for me, I'm not liking the keyboard in this shot right now. And also this ruler seems kind of distracting. So I'm going to bring this down rotate a little bit. I really want the focus of this to be on the product. So then I'm also going to decrease the bevel on this again just a little bit, make it more chord sized and what seems right to me. And then let's see here. I'm also going to grab our coffee cup from our props. Click this here. I'm going to bring it over like this. Nice. Okay, this is looking pretty much like the render that I made for Instagram. So this is the basic settings. So now let's do some animation. So the first thing I did was I'm going to have my animation be 120 seconds. So I set this to 120. And then this is kind of the hero shot. So what I'm going to basically do is use this kind of as my reference. So this is the amount of rotation that I want to have. So I'm going to go back to the very beginning. And then I have one keyframe here. I'm not sure what that's from. So I'm just going to click A to select everything. A, X, and delete keyframes in this area just to make sure I don't have a keyframe left over from something. So I'm going to rotate this into Z and just kind of start it from over here. I'm going to be using motion blur, so you probably won't see this light, but if you wanted to, like G XX or GYY, you could kind of scoot this along. But honestly, you're going to we'll play with this as we kind of go through. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to here, make sure I'm selected on this, insert a rotation keyframe, and then go to the very end and then basically rotate it all the way around the model to something like this. And you can see it's super blown out the way this works. But in the shot I used a lot of motion blur toward the end, so you're not really going to notice. So now if we scrub through this, you can see we got this nice animation. But it's very important that our graph editor make these look good. So I'm going to go into the top view. I'm going to bring this down again. And we're going to make this little window an editor. So just click this and hit E. And then I'm going to hit N to hide this panel. And then while I've got this selected, kind of all I'm looking at is the rotation. So if you do this and click normalize, that's going to make this fit really nicely in this window. And so now what this is saying is it's going to start kind of slow and then go from slow to fast to slow. But what I want to do is I want to grab this and I want to rotate them up. And I'm going to do it symmetrically. So I'm just going to bring it till it's right at this point in the middle right here. And I'm going to grab the same thing, G, bring this down like this. Perfect. And now if you played the animation, you could see that basically if I go into solid view here, go back to our animation, bring this up. It kind of starts quick, it jumps at the beginning, but it's actually not enough for me. So what I'm going to do is grab this and let's bring it up to this level on here and this level on here. So now it snaps to the middle and it's going to go slow and then go back. Still not enough for me right now. So what I'm going to do is continue to bring this down all the way, bring this up all the way. And then that way it's going to basically stop in the middle and then go back to moving really quickly. And then we might even just check this here. So let's see. If you wanted to also, now that we kind of have this set, you could go to frame 60 and then click this and insert a rotation keyframe. And then basically that would let you take this and kind of rotate it. That way it stays moving throughout this point. And then what I would do is probably move these up again. Actually not here, let's just do this. Let's take this one and scale it to something like that. So now it's going to snap in the middle, stay moving at kind of a constant speed, and then continue. And that's basically the animation that I used for my camera. And the good thing about this is the strong motion here, this quick motion for these keyframes up to about here, those are going to be using motion blur. So if you have stuff in this scene right here, like so for example, you could see this, but it's only going to really be focused in on the scene once you get to this point. And you want it to look good all the way through here. And then kind of once you get to here, again, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be sped up. So this is the scene that I used when I did mine. Also, it's looking like from the animation, it's kind of slow at the beginning. So I'm going to click this one and scale it up even more to something like that. And it's going to pop in, give us a nice little view there, and go. Yep, that's perfect. So that's the one that I used for this. And then now we got a few more animations that we want to set up. So I'm going to hide this props, and then what I'm going to do is basically what I did for these was in the animation, it got to about here, frame 25. I just picked random keyframes to kind of get pressed. So I went over here, insert a location keyframe. I hit the right arrow to go forward, I think 3 frames. So 1, 2, 3, GZ, bring it down just enough to be a key press. Also, if you notice that your stuff is kind of clipping through, you may have to move these pieces that created here. So what was this? That was our top switch. Or let me just go to render view. That was our clear ones. So you may have to bring each of those down. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and do it. So let's Alt-H to unhide everything. I'm gonna turn our keycaps off, go back to our solid view, and then I'm gonna grab our clear switches and just grab all of them, and then go into the right-hand view, and then I'm just gonna bring those down a little bit. They're gonna intersect, but you won't really notice in the render at all. I'm just gonna give us a little more area for that button to go down. So now I can go back, turn on our keycaps again. So now I should be able to, if I go back to frame, click this one, or whichever one we moved first, we gave it to a keyframe. Well, I guess I didn't set a keyframe. So I'm gonna grab this one, go to frame 25, insert a location, move forward 3 frames, GZ, bring it down just before it, kind of touches or it's intersecting. So I actually see intersection right there. So GZ, bring it up, insert another location, and then I just grab this one and shift D, X, and then just 6. So now in the animation, it'll go boop, and it's that one right there. Oh, that's why I'm moved over here. This one we did create a keyframe. Let's grab this one and just delete that and do it again. So this is the one I did first. Go to frame 25, the first one. 1, 2, 3, GZ. Just bring it down to that first point of intersection right there. Insert a location. Grab that first keyframe, shift D and the X. Grab it, shift D, X, and then just click 6 to move it 6 keyframes. So now it boop gets pressed just like that. So now I just kind of picked an abstract way to do this. So I did it so on this one we ended on frame 31. So I'm going to give it 3 frames. So these are 3 frames a piece. So I'm going to go 3, 3, 3. Go to the last one, 1, 2, 3. I clicked him. Insert a location, 1, 2, 3, GZ. Bring it down to that first intersection. Insert another location, and then just grab this one, shift D and X by 6. So then I'm going to go to this one, which is on frame 40. 1, 2, 3. Just grab another one. Insert a location. 1, 2, 3. GZ. Bring it down. Something like that. Insert another location. 1, 2, 3. And then grab this one right here. Shift D and X 6. And then we'll do one more. Now that we're on this keyframe, make sure we're on the last one of here. So there. 1, 2, 3. Grab this. Insert a location, and then 1, 2, 3, GZ to bring it down. I'm going to zoom in so I can make sure I'm not intersecting. GZ, perfect. Insert a location, 1, 2, 3, shift D and X by 6. Okay, so now if we go through and set this as solid view so it's not distracting, it goes click, 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 and then I rotated this wheel next. So our last one was kind of on frame 58, so I'm going to go to frame 65. Grab this guy, insert a rotation keyframe. Let's go ahead 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top view, just rotate this kind of this way just to make sure that something happened. Insert a rotation keyframe, and then shift D, X 10 to make it kind of symmetrical. So now that thing will move the way it did. The speed is not good. You kind of want it to be slow to fast. You just kind of see how if I play this here, it's super fast. So one thing we can do, let's just grab these keyframes, and as long as you use the blue marker for your playback, if you click S to scale, they always scale from this right here. So I'm going to set this to the first one so this doesn't move. And I'm going to scale this up to go to something like this just to make this a little bit slower. That looks good to me. Actually, might even scale it up just a little bit more. Let's go to 85. That looks great. So then if I go out of here, I'm going to look just at the rotation and click normalize again. If you want to make this bigger or smaller, we can just kind of bring these down and then zoom in like this. And then I actually might have this go like slow to, or kind of fast to slow like this. So grab both of these and bring them down. Something like that. Actually, I don't like that very much. So let's just Control Z, bring that back. Like that. That looks pretty good to me. Let's check it in the render view. It's very noisy, so I'm just gonna go back to solid view. Bring this up. So it snaps in, our buttons get pressed, rotates, and then keeps going. Beautiful. That is exactly how we had it in the one that went on Instagram. So now let's just go back and kind of go through this one more time. So we're looking here. buttons get pressed, that gets turned. This has got a nice little highlight thing going on in the back with the keyboard. I like where that's at. Also, one thing we could do is we might grab these and just bring them to where they're not intersecting our mat, like this. And then I might take this one and scale them, just give this a little bit better shape. And then also this is really high, so let's go kind of perpendicular to it and rotate it downwards like this. That looks good to me. So now if we go back to our hero shot, we kind of got this set here. And then also I'm going to bring it back, tab, and just grab these and GX and bring them over a little bit. Give this a little bit more curve, kind of give this kind of a leading angle. So one important step, because we have this kind of light here that you don't really want to see at first, you want to make sure that we're rendering with motion blur. So just go to your output thing here, click motion blur. I would never really go above 0.5. It kind of messes and looks weird. So if you click this now and render the image, you can see that this is going to be super blurry at first, and it's going to be, when you do this at the end of the animation, like with all these put together, you're not going to notice that this was the way it was. So I'm setting mine to 500 samples. For this kind of scene, you probably wouldn't even need that much because you don't have a lot of transmission or anything going on. So I would go back to this. Also, I like 30 frames per second, so make sure we set this to 30 frames per second. You can go through and change this to make a file format to be PNG or to be an FMPEG video. If it's a small scene like this, for me, with relatively little pieces and stuff like that, I would tend to just render this out as a MP4 video, but it is probably more stable to go through and set this to PNG and just save the image sequence and then convert it. So now if I look at it, it's coming in there, it clicks the buttons, rotates, and snaps through. And the good thing about this is when you use these transitions with the blur at the beginning, that's going to let you then kind of blur into your next shot. If you had your next one, like maybe your keys come up or something like that, whatever your next shot is, these speed ramp transitions at the end kind of motion blur you into whatever you want to do next. So if you click that, this looks good. You could go through and you could add more props if you want to change different pieces. You could change the angle on this. So if you want this to be a little bit more of a top-down view like that, you could. So now this is basically set up. If you wanted to go through and change some props layout here, if you want to change your materials on this, you could create some colors in there like we talked about. If you want to do basically anything you want to do to this scene, you can. So now the only other tip that I would add is we're going to do this real quick. This is a new thing I've been messing around with. So if we grab this light and then click use nodes, what we can basically do is instead of these just being plain white lights, what we're going to do is shift A and then add in search for black body converter. And then now if we plug this color into this color like this is going to go absolutely bonkers. So I'll put it on the screen now, but basically we can use the Kelvin temperatures of light to color the light to kind of be realistic. So let's just play around with that. I'm going to do 4500 at first. You can see that still has a little bit of a red tone. Let's try 5000. Still kind of red. Let's try 6500. Yeah, that looks good. So to me, that gives it a little bit of a cool color. So if I disconnect this, you can see it's kind of minimal. But if we bump this to like 7000 and then go here to change, it's kind of hard to notice, but these kind of things can make a little bit of a difference to give it a little bit more of a blues texture. Let's go 7500 to see. So that kind of looks a little bit more like daylight. You can kind of look at that graph and see what stuff is going to be daylight and what isn't. But if you want it to be a little bit more like a sunrise, you could do like something like 5000. That's going to give you a little bit of an orangish tint, or 5500. And that just gives you a little bit of a nice tint to your lights there. So feel free to mess around with those and kind of replicate that. I think 6000 looks good on this. I'm actually going to bump it up to 6500. And that gives it a little bit of a cool light, a little bit of a temperature there. And then I'm also going to do the same thing on this one. Use nodes, drag out from this, do a black body, or search black body. And then there, set this to like 6500. Bam. Okay, and that's basically it. That is the animation that I created. It kind of highlights the keys being pressed. You can make as many shots as you want to now that you have this product. You can change the props in the scene if you don't like the coffee cup there. If you want to add something different, you could do that. Like I said, your first frames, these aren't necessarily going to be seen very much. By the time that you get to frame, it really slows down at kind of like 9 or 10. And by this time, you're not going to have anything in your scene that you don't want to see. So this should look pretty good. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this tutorial series. We're going to have more coming out soon. I've got some really cool products that we're going to model and go through and create, work on some more product design stuff. If you haven't watched the Teenage Engineering series as well as the Steel Case series, go through and watch those. There's a lot more practice to be done. As I mentioned in the tutorial at the beginning, there's a lot of stuff for free on Patreon, so you can go grab that. Support me there if you want. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you in the next one.